Welcome back to GaleForceWins Season 2. Thank you to those that joined us in Season 1. We continue to explore the journeys of Canadians doing inspiring things.
The GaleForceWins podcast is proudly sponsored by Newfound Marketing, a digital marketing agency located in St. John's, Newfoundland. Newfound Marketing builds cost-effective digital marketing solutions to help organizations unlock their online growth potential. Newfound Marketing's team of experts works with their clients from start to finish to deliver solutions that convert. Visit our website at newfoundmarketing.ca to find out how we can help your business grow. Newfound Marketing, a complement to your marketing team.
Well, welcome to another edition of GaleForceWins, and here we are in sunny Orlando, Florida. Just take a look outside at those palm trees. I'm lying to you. This is downtown St. John's, East End, and every time I come to Newfoundland, the sun just splits the rocks. It's a wonderful place to be. I'm Alan Dale, and with me, as always, my good buddy, and we're right in his living room, Jerry Carew. Jerry, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, I've got the family put on notice. My 14-year-old was here a minute ago, crankling, a bag of chips, and I said, go downstairs, leave us alone. And whatever it is about you, you bring sunshine to St. John's every time. For anyone who's a photographer knows, shooting against a window is a challenge. Shooting against a window with sunlight is even worse. But anyway, enough of that. I love the weather and all that, but we got Steve Dinn here today. I met you first time down at the baseball place when our kids were doing something. Knew a little bit about you, not a lot. That's why we're here. Yeah. We want to know who you are and what you've been doing.
Well, 100%, Jerry. I'm excited to be in this conversation because Steve is just much more than a guest on GaleForceWins. Steve happens to be my cousin. So I'm pretty proud to have him on GaleForceWins. So, Steve, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, thanks very much, guys. Pleasure to be here. Walk you through some things today, I guess, and let you know a little bit more about me, which is why we're here. But Stephen Dinn, as you said, I grew up in the Churchill Square area of St. John's and haven't really strayed far since, except for a brief stint in Ontario for a number of years after graduation. Have one sibling, older sister, 3 years my senior. So have a good positive relationship with her, and she lives not far from me, a couple of streets over. So we haven't strayed far from each other. And our mother, who is only a few blocks away from that, so we're all still very, very tight. But grew up in a very normal, household. Two parents. Mom didn't go back to work until probably I was in junior high school. Right. But it was a big transition because not only did she go back to work, she had to move away for work.
Okay.
So I was probably a rare breed back then of having a parent out of the house. Working at the time, and she worked in New Brunswick, so she spent a considerable time there and still does to a large degree. But a very loving home and supportive, and I was able to participate in all the sporting activities and school sports and all those types of things, and get my parents in the hop driving me around town and those driving friends to sporting activities and those types of things. But a pretty modest home. We didn't we didn't suffer anything, and we didn't overextend ourselves. So. Right. Pretty positive that way.
Such an important thing, really, in life, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a pretty good lesson for me. I know one of the things my father told me that always resonated with me. He said, look, I was broke once in my life, and I swore I'd never let it happen again. Yeah. And it's probably made me a little more conservative than some of my friends, but it's something I took to heart and kind of can't forget.
No.
What kind of sports were you involved in?
I suppose I dabbled in a lot of the mainstream sports. I was in hockey and soccer and basketball. Those types of things, volleyball at school and tennis. I was very active in tennis as a child growing up. You'd wake up in the morning in the summertime, you'd have your breakfast, and you'd go down to the tennis court, and you'd come home for supper. And that's how we did it, right? So spent a lot of time in Larch Park area as our social hangout.
Right.
And that's where our friends gathered and did that whole loop around Riverdale to Larch Park to Churchill Square. And of course, being in that neighborhood, you frequented those spots, and schooling then, of course, was just up the street into St. Pius, into Gonzaga, and then on to Mon. So I guess I'm a homebody from that perspective.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Unlike our buddy Alan, who's been 30 years traipsing around the world.
That's right.
Yeah. But that's lovely, right? Your life existed around that area. It's great. I know that Regatta was a big part of you guys' lives, right?
Yeah, it was. My father was heavily involved in Regatta on the committee, and would swear every single year that this was his Christmas. Regatta Day was his Christmas, and just a few months after he passed now almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. So he was inducted into the Regatta Hall of Fame. I was down and gave his acceptance speech a few years ago at City Hall. It was a very, very proud moment for us. We knew how much that meant to Dad,
Right.
and of course then to all of us. So
Yeah.
that was a big day. But yeah, very important day for our household.
So you probably didn't miss many regattas.
No, that wasn't permitted.
That wasn't permitted?
No.
Right on. So if for the audience, they may not know where we're geographically located. I often talk about the east end of St. John's, but where we're physically located is really only a couple of 100 feet from the regatta, right?
On Regatta Day, this road
You can't park.
is full of cars, and we had many times where there'd be the party would start the night before, and then it started the second night before, and then it was like a week long. Yeah. We eventually went golfing sometimes. We moved away from
Get away from it.
So for our upper Canadian guests and for our international audience, Jerry, can you explain what the regatta is?
Well, I guess the regatta is a boating race. Non-sliding seats. I did it once.
Fixed seat, yeah.
Once. Fixed seat. The man's father's in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure why you're asking me this question.
Just because you're so close to it, Jerry.
My wife's grandfather, what was his first name? Kenny was his last name. But anyway, he's a Hall of Fame coxswain.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a bit of history around the family in it. But I was once in one of those boats. And it was brutal.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but it's the longest continuously running sporting event. Am I right?
Yeah, in North America, and it has the royal designation, which is something it was in the notes, regatta notes that were kept, but something my father championed.
Right.
As a cause to get the royal designation, so it's now the Royal St. John's Regatta. But it's funny to your question to Jerry, because you're asking Jerry what the regatta is. You need to ask multiple people what the regatta is. It's different things to different people.
To
some people, it's a rowing regatta.
Yeah.
To some people, it's a day to go down and have games, a chance to walk the pond. To some people, it's just a day off and drinking.
Yeah.
Right? Depends who you ask.
And of course, regatta roulette, for those who don't know, that's a kind of take the chance that the regatta will go ahead. It's a weird holiday for business people, isn't it?
Well, it's an unpredictable holiday.
Totally unpredictable, because it's reliant on weather. Yeah. And if the wind is blowing, it won't go ahead. So, it's always the first Wednesday in August. But as a retail operation, I was involved in the advertising world. It was a real struggle to figure out what was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, so it's the only holiday that's determined by a volunteer board.
Okay.
For the city. Right.
Okay.
So the city declares the day off based on the volunteer board vote at 5:30 in the morning based on the weather for the day.
That's incredible.
If it's too windy, everybody goes to work.
Right.
Right.
That's incredible. And there's a common expression in St. John's that everybody would know, and that is, and most other people wouldn't get it, but is she going ahead? That's the expression, is the regatta going ahead, right?
Yeah, it's a day when you roll over and click on the radio to see if they announced if it was going ahead or not.
So a big part of your life, the regatta. Yep. Your dad was hugely involved in that. Sounds like a perfect little upbringing there, and very stable and normal. Tell me about your academic journey. Where did you go for school and the like? Yeah, so post high school at Gonzaga, I went to MUN. And I did a Bachelor of Arts degree and majored in political science, did a minor in business, did a public administration certificate. And that was really my university career. I went back later in life and did some extra coursework, professional management type work. And other than that, that's been my post-secondary education. From graduation, I actually moved. I stayed here for maybe a year or two and moved away for the better part of 5 years. Yeah. And, just something I didn't really, I wanted to do it at the time. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of friends who lived in Toronto and Ottawa, so I moved there. But, I don't know, like a lot of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, you reluctantly move, but I would encourage anyone to move. It's an invaluable experience. You can always come home. I'm just one example of that, but the experience you gain somewhere else, not just professionally, but personally, gaining your independence, seeing up a new part of the world, and everybody's like, we have such and such amount of people left the province this year. So what? Yeah. They come back if it's there for them. Right. I encourage people to go. Right. Yeah. It just provides you with so much learning, so much experience, invaluable. And, I've regretted the day I left until I got back, not being around my father, because he was left mom's away, as I said. Yeah. My sister was, on her own, and he was there. I was here with him, and then I'm gone. And so
I always had that in the back of my mind. I always knew I was coming back to have that time with him again. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I gained some very valuable lessons there, and on a professional level, just the experiences I had there, and I spent the bulk of that 5 years traveling alone in the U.S.
Right.
In a sales role and delivering presentations to American resellers of our software and technology products, and I don't know if I would have gotten that kind of exposure here. Right?
Tell me a little bit about that. Like, that's something that's really cool. Like, I've been in sales for 30 years, but it's primarily been, the latter part of my career was off the island. But what did that do for your confidence? Like, the first time, tell us about the very first time you're a young Newfoundland boy and you're in the United States doing a pitch. What's that like?
Well, so, I mean, bluntly, you're shit-baked, right?
Yeah.
I'm not an extrovert.
Yeah.
But any kind of public speaking or being here today came from that experience.
Yeah.
You take a course on presenting in public, and our workplace offered that. But once you're down there on your own, you set up your laptop, and these people are coming in, and you're one of probably 10 of these they're getting a week, every week, and you got to stand out. And so I don't know how I mustered it, but you've got to perform.
You remember the first pitch?
Yeah, I do.
Tell me about it.
Well, CDW in Chicago. I mean, it's
That's
the
a big
largest
city.
reseller of technology in definitely the States.
Are you in their office, or do
Their
they
offices.
come to you? They're in their office.
Their offices. So I'm basically presenting to their software inside sales team who answers the call when the business calls and says, I need a new home office product, or whatever the case may be, right? I worked with Corel at the time, so we were selling the WordPerfect at Sweden.
Oh, yeah.
And back then, yes, I know it's nothing now, but it was pretty...
It was something else.
Right? And so you've got half an hour, and it's a lunch and learn, and you've got to stand up in front of them, and you've got to sell yourself.
And how many people are in the room?
Well, there's probably upwards of 50 or 60 people in the room. And
Stephen, that's nerve-wracking. I'm talking about it now.
So you know what I did, and I still have it to this day. I have an overhead picture, basically taken, I think, from around Mount Sil, overlooking downtown St. John's and out through the Narrows, and that's the backdrop of not my screensaver, but my photo on my computer.
Yeah.
And of course, as soon as you put that on the screen before you start your presentation, the first things you get is, well, where is that? And I'm like, perfect.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? How right away you want to try and be different, and all you had to do was put a picture up.
Yeah, and I still have that picture is still on my computer today.
Oh, that's an amazing little tidbit right there. Like, what a way to center yourself, to calm yourself. This is where I'm from, and I'm comfortable talking about this. And right away, people are going to want to know about that place.
I grew up here, people, the most easterly point in North America.
Right.
And I still every job I've had, I've saved that particular photo file and taken it to my new workplace and put it on my computer.
What an icebreaker.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I spent a bit of time around that area, they always thought I was from New York. Trying to place the accent.
Yeah.
You from New York? Yeah. I'm like, no, a little further east. Yeah. Of course, there's nothing east of New York to them, right?
Yeah. But to your original question, it's over time you get. I don't know if you're ever. I'm certainly never fully comfortable. Mm-hmm. But that experience was certainly the pathway to allowing me to get that, I suppose, confidence to present to whoever, stand in front of a room and speak. I don't put my hand up for it, but I'm certainly not afraid of it anymore.
No.
So you did that for 5 years?
Yeah.
Were you based out of Toronto or Ottawa?
I was based in Ottawa at first, and then I moved to Toronto probably halfway through and worked out of the house.
Right.
There, because I switched over then to a lot of the national retailers in Canada as my accounts, and so their hubs and headquarters were in Toronto, so it just made sense for me to be there. And a lot of my close buddies were in Toronto. So.
Okay, right on. So there was a little bit of a social network there. And
a little bit more of home.
A little bit more home,
there, right?
right.
So, but I mean, I loved my time in Ottawa.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful city, and made good friends there, and had a couple there from home, and so it was great.
So what drew you home?
Well, as I said, I wanted to be close to family first and foremost.
Yeah.
I knew the day I left I was coming back. It was just a matter of when.
Okay.
And then, so backing up to the question about my education and my degree, and we talked earlier about a common friend that we have from the political world. So I was in my very political family. Interesting fact, at one point in time, I had my mom's brother and my dad's brother in the Peckford cabinet.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it kind of in my blood. Mom was a pretty key organizer for the federal and provincial Tories.
So Brian was in your house periodically, I would imagine.
And it wasn't in mine, no. No, he wasn't in mine. But we had a lot of neat things, and Mom did advanced work for the Prime Minister back in the 80s, and I got a chance to, stand at the bottom of the stairs of the Challenger when the Prime Minister come to town, and some pretty unique experiences,
Right.
and it was pretty cool. So, having said that, I'm living in Toronto, and someone I've known my whole life is in an election as leader, running to be premier, and I fly home to go to the election day events and election night in Corner Brook. And he's successful, and I go back to Ontario, and shortly thereafter I get a text message saying, "Are you coming home to go to work?" And it was Danny Collin, and I'd known him obviously a long time, coached me hockey, know his kids quite well, and we had always talked politics.
Yep.
And
But you got to spit Danny. Not everybody knows Danny.
well, it was Danny Williams.
Danny Williams.
And his parents actually were very key political organizers with my parents, and so they had a relationship, and everything just kind of fell in place. And I don't know if I was exactly ready to come home, but when that opportunity presented itself, that's a tough one to pass up. So I jumped and came
So
home.
was he in the opposition at that point?
He had just been elected premier.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to tell you a quick story. I'm on my way to Florida. I see Daniel Williams in the airport, right? I'm like, kind of, anyone who's watched the podcast, very inquisitive guy, and I'm always interested in talking to people. Someone like him who's created a business, I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him, he'll be in first class. I get on the plane, empty seat. Who sits next to me? But him. My wife's here, me, him.
Yeah.
Poor Danny, because and I kept apologizing. I'm sorry. Well, I was asking him a million questions, but I got to tell you, and if he watches this, I really enjoyed that flight.
Right.
He may not have enjoyed it as much as I did, but anyway, I was picking his brain.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that. It was cool.
Caliber politician you don't often see.
No.
Well, I mean, there's the history will, I think, be very kind to him. But just someone who cared deeply and passionately about the place and wanted to contribute. And hats off to anyone who does that. But he was certainly one who wanted to do that. He as they always said, he didn't need to do this. It wasn't a job for him. It's something he wanted to do to come in and make a difference. And it was just absolutely thrilling to be part of it.
What was it like getting that text message?
Pretty cool. Your kind of heart kind of flutters, and you're like, okay, like this is. If I want to say no, I don't think I can.
Yeah.
Right, one of those things.
But you're a business guy, and even though it's Danny Williams,
Yeah.
like going into politics.
So what was it? What was the role you went into?
Well, I was his deputy chief of staff. So I spent 6.5 years there, and people always ask me, how was it? You know what? It was absolutely incredible.
Right.
Loved every second. The day I walked out, never regretted a thing, never looked back.
Yeah.
So I did a hard cut. But I mean, it was just, like people on the outside, I can't explain it here today because people just don't understand it. They don't see the inner workings.
Yeah.
They're very cynical.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's just not the way it is there. Everybody's, and I don't put this across party lines. It's for everybody. I think everybody's in there trying to do their best.
Trying to do their best.
And that's all you can ask of them. But there's a lot of things that go on and decisions that are made, and you don't get to see the hard work that goes on. And it's a lot. And for people who don't understand politics or don't have that view, and it's not their fault, they just don't have the, not everybody gets to get working government and have the opportunity to see those inner workings. But, you take a minister from rural Newfoundland or someone from the West Coast or from Labrador, and they got to be in here 4 or 5 days a week for the bulk of the year. And if they're they're going to take their own portfolio, they got to sit in the House of Assembly. They have to be on 3 or 4 committees and Treasury Board and one of the social policy or economic policy and the poverty reduction committee. And then they go home on the weekends, and everybody wants them to go to the wedding, the graduation.
Andrew Parsons comes to mind, right?
Oh, Andrew Parsons told a great story. He said that he would drop the kids off to school. He wanted to wait to drop the kids off to school, and then he'd drive to St. John's from Port of Pass.
Yeah.
Then he'd drive to St. John's to go to work for the week. I mean, that is a level of dedication, and you're right. There are people in there just trying to do their best for their province. Yeah. But 6.5 years in this chief of staff role,
deputy chief of
staff role, working in the inner. I mean, was there a day that you were off? Or were you on all the time?
Well, you're on all the time. Technology is great, and that's like I've always said. The beauty of a smartphone is positive and negative, right? It's positive because you don't have to be in the office. Yeah. It's negative because it works always with you, right? Yeah. So it's catch-22. But you're always on. And Danny's a workaholic.
Right.
He doesn't stop. His mind never turns off.
Right.
But he gets a lot accomplished. And
I
said I was interviewed as part of a National Film Board thing that they did.
I saw that
movie on Danny. I was interviewed
well done
for that as well with my colleagues, and one thing I said is it's very, very challenging every day to be someone who's tasked to brief the Premier.
Right.
But he already knows. He's already got it read in advance. He already knows. This
So
stuff.
your briefs would be, someone told me one time Ronald Reagan wanted one page. The entire world had to be summarized in one page. How long were your briefings?
Well, a lot of that stuff came up through the various departments, and there's a lot of work that the bureaucracy does to prepare you for position papers and those types of things. And you got to go in and you got to provide your best advice and counsel.
You don't walk in with a binder of 40 pages, though.
You don't have to, unless there's a conference or something coming up. That's what you're feeding off of, is a binder. It's
Really?
there's a lot of stuff there. You meet interesting people. You travel to various places. You don't get to see a whole lot when you do travel, but the climate change conference in California with Schwarzenegger, or meeting the Irish Prime Minister and inviting him here, which he did come here, and going to one of these speaking events with Bill Clinton, or there's a lot of interesting.
Come to mind while you're talking. What were you doing when he was on with Paul McCartney on CNN?
Yeah,
were you behind the scenes?
We weren't there. It was only him and his director of communications, I think, went to that interview because he was just facing in front of a camera. He wasn't actually.
Yeah, because Paul McCartney, I think at the time was in PEI.
Yeah, and he said to Danny, he said, "I'm here, Danny." And then he goes, "No, you're not."
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
I'm sure Sir Paul regrets part of that exchange.
So, this is a tough question, and we'll move on to more about it. But tell me this: what was the most memorable moment in that 6.5? Because that is a very interesting part of your journey that nobody else would have an insight into.
I'd say it's very hard in that environment with Danny to pinpoint it to a single event. How can you not get a few chills when you think about the $2 billion check we got? He was a dog on that one. Never seen someone so relentless and passionate to stick to their cause. He was relentless. It was amazing to watch. Great to be part of.
It was fun to see it.
Yeah.
And the level of optimism.
Explain what it was.
Go ahead.
Well, it was a battle with the federal government over our offshore resources and equalization formula, and we needed to get compensated appropriately. I'm summarizing very generally, but that's generally it. It was a long, drawn out push, and it was, I think, the Prime Minister of the day wanted to do something. The bureaucracy in Ottawa did not. So that was a hurdle that they had to overcome before they could even come to us. And Danny was very, very clear with his position with them over time, and stuck to his guns on it. At the end of the day, he got the $2 billion check, and he didn't go and give everyone on the corner a bit of money. He put it on the unfunded pension liability to take care of that. So I think.
How did that make you feel in the moment when you guys knew you were going to get it?
Well, it was excellent. It was just I was happy for him. He put so much work and everything into it. It was a great moment for the province.
Right.
And later in life, I thought back on it and said, one of these days, perhaps my kids will be learning about that in a political course in school or something, and I'll be able to talk to them about it.
I liked how you gave me that answer. You said you're happy for him. What a chief of staff. Even today, you're reflecting back that it was all about what he was doing for the province. That's great. So what happened after that? So you left that. You did a cut with those guys.
Yeah, interesting. So it's funny how one thing cascades into the other. One of the things that the Premier likes to do and the ministers like to do is go out and they want to see the success stories of the province. And one day, Danny was invited out to tour PAL, and PAL was an up-and-coming aerospace and defense company at the time. Obviously, had their regional airline, which was much more well-known, but all the aerospace work wasn't. And so we were encouraged by Minister Trevor Taylor at the time, actually, you got to go out and see what they're doing at PAL. So we took the opportunity to go out, and they gave us a tour and a presentation, and we just sat around and talked, and two of us were blown away by what was out there, and just the work they were doing that nobody had heard about, and still to this day, largely a lot of people don't know much about it.
Right.
And I guess conversations. I knew someone out there, and conversations flowed. If you're ever looking to get out of your political life, give us a call, and we'll see if there's anything around. And obviously, being in a political job, a political staffer, your time, the day you sign on to be one, that your time will end.
Right.
You know that in advance, so that's good.
Yeah.
You just got a time to get out. So I worked on a deal with PAL to become their vice president of corporate development at the time, and it was in May of 2010, and I resigned May 24th weekend, I think, with Danny.
Yeah.
And he subsequently resigned 6 months later. So my timing was pretty good, I think.
Yeah, right.
But I would have to say, when you're asked about a defining moment, one of the ones was resigning.
Yeah.
That wasn't easy. He provided me an avenue to get home and work in a field and an area where I was quite passionate and happy to do, and having to tell him I was leaving wasn't easy.
Tell me about it. Go ahead. Tell me about it.
Well, very nervous and apprehensive, to be
Sheepish.
quite frank. I knew it needed to be done, and it was the right thing to do. The timing was right. The opportunity was right. It wasn't just for anything. I left because I had a really good career opportunity, and that's tough to pass up. And I knew he'd know that. And, he was getting ready to leave on a Friday afternoon for a long week, and I just kind of said to him as he walked out of my office, I said, like, can you come in for a second? And I shut the door and sat down and told him. And
he knew right away where this was going.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
It probably wasn't his first conversation with someone. And I have to say, and I've told whoever was asked, when you talk about, a supportive mentor and boss, the first words out of his mouth is, I would never hold you back from an opportunity.
Wow.
Yeah, he said, that seems like an excellent opportunity. I would encourage you to go and make the most of it. So those were his words, and I never forgot him. And very, very supportive. So what more can you ask for, right?
Well, I mean, that probably came from 6.5 years of you being there for him every day, right? And the support goes both ways, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Relationships are built from both sides. So I hear you. Danny was quite supportive of you, and kudos to him.
Yeah.
But that relationship was formed a lot of by your energy as well. So that must have been a tough conversation.
It was. It wasn't easy. I got to say, it wasn't. I stressed over it. For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, PAL, that's an interesting journey as well. I mean, because it's a great company.
Yeah, I mean, and I look at, you're asking me the question, so I'm looking back now at my career. I mean, I was I'll get to PAL in a second, but I was a camp counselor at the Muse Center at 15 years old.
Yeah.
It had a group of 10 kids I was accountable for every day, Monday through Friday. And once, I think, a week or once a month, I can't recall, we would camp out in butter pot together. And actually my first exposure to being, having someone around us with special needs. And we had to, had a person there, we had special accommodations for that person. And, you talk about experiences that shape your life. And, 15 years old and being a camp counselor, okay. And I did it, and it was, one of those things at the time you don't appreciate it, but how can you not now? It's pretty defining moment in the things and lessons you learn throughout your life. And looking back, as I said, I think it was amazing. Yeah. At the time, you're just doing it because you're told to do it. At 15, you do nothing but take instruction, right? Yeah. So, but that was great, and things like this. After my political career, I had an opportunity to do a few episodes of On Point with Dave Cochran as part of the Here and Now program, I guess, or do some kind of a segment, I suppose, or got into his own show, really. Yeah. And I was some other interesting people that was really kind of neat and talk about politics and just give it kind of an inside perspective. So did a little bit of that. But as you said, after that, I got into PAL and just had it's been since 2010, right? So it's been a pretty long stretch here. Very, very busy. I always felt it was as busy as intense all the time at PAL as it was in the Premier's office. It's just I felt more like my time was my own. Right. I was a little bit more in charge of my own calendar. But I mean, PAL is doing work on the global scale with bases of operation all across the country right now. In the Caribbean, we've got operations in a fairly significant operation over in the Middle East. We have a new office we're establishing right now over in Amsterdam. So there's a lot going on in aerospace and defense. And for those who don't know, we specialize in surveillance aircraft, and we build them here in St. John's, Newfoundland, Labrador, at the hangar in Torbay Airport.
I can often see them flying in this window.
Yeah,
they fly in the flight path, right?
Yeah. So we do work for governments and militaries, paramilitary groups, surveillance aircraft, and we can do the full gamut of owning, operating, training, maintaining to one of those. So we could just build a surveillance plane for someone and pass it off to them when we're done.
What's interesting, Alan, most people, PAL is the plane that you fly, maybe you'll go to Corner Brook on.
That's right. Yeah.
I love being able to talk to someone like yourself who can explain to our fellow Newfoundlanders how incredible a local company can be and be in so many markets.
Yeah.
Going to Amsterdam, we're establishing an office. He says it so matter-of-factly, but I'm sure the amount of effort to put an office in Amsterdam is a lot.
Just won a big contract with the Dutch over there to provide 2 surveillance aircraft over there, and normally with Dash 8 platforms. But you're right, the airline is the better known entity here in the province locally.
Right.
But from an aerospace and defense perspective, we do maritime surveillance. So, when you take in the industries, we're a global leader in aerospace and defense. We compete with some of the largest defense companies in the world, and sometimes successful, sometimes not, and that's the nature of the game. But we're also part of the ocean tech sector. We're part of Tech NL. We're part of, as I said, aerospace and defense. So, we cross a wide range of industries. We have a software company that's a big part of
CartNav, is that?
Yeah, CartNav in Halifax, and do a lot of software engineering. We have an engineering group that's part of our organization in Toronto.
What, not to put you on the spot, what would you say is the number of employees you have employed right now, approximately?
Overall, as a group of companies, I would say we're at around 1,700 or so.
Yeah, so this is what I mean, right? I mean, you're right. So people gloss over PAL and they think, oh, it's an airline, small airline or whatever. But you're right. PAL is making an impact globally on a very big scale. When you talk about maritime surveillance using the PAL aircraft and technology, I mean, you're surveying parts of the world that are complicated in the Middle East and the like. And it's, this is work that has a global impact, and it's all happening out of Newfoundland. It's fantastic to hear these stories, right?
Yeah, it's
1,700 employees.
Yeah, it's a number of entities included in that, right?
Yeah.
It's the PAL group. It's significant, and not to be undersold at all in terms of that, but a lot of people also don't recognize our work with our Indigenous groups. Mm-hmm. We have a partnership with the Indigenous groups in Labrador that spans nearly 30 years. We had an airline with the Innu called Innu, and in the last 5-6 years have partnered with the Innu and Inuit to have Air Borealis. PAL is kind of the managing group and operator of the airline, but just a significant partnership that we've had for a long time with our partners here in Labrador, and it's been very rewarding. It's probably one of the things at PAL that I'm pretty happy about and proud of, because I don't know if I would have gotten the exposure in another company or another life to Labrador, first of all, and to the Indigenous people up there, and fantastic people and partners.
Tell me about Labrador. Tell me about your impression of Labrador.
Well, I got to go there a few times, obviously, when I was in the Premier's office. So that was my first exposure, and just what everybody says, it's just, vast land. And obviously, very rich in not just its minerals, but its culture unto itself, right?
100%.
And, we know people who live there, and I try to go there once a year to go skidooing with a colleague and see a bit more of it. It's
I've been there in the summer. I haven't been brave enough to go in the winter.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, so
it's a spectacular part of our province.
It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It doesn't get kind of get the
it's
attention.
Funny, Alan, in listening to you talk, we had Chris Flanagan on, the CEO of Baffin Fisheries, and he does a lot of work in Iqaluit, I believe. And just listening to him talk, and I've been following his LinkedIn and some of the pictures he posts. And I put up the picture that it was +9 here. He put up a picture that was -32. Yeah. But just listening to him talk about the relationship between himself and the Indigenous people, and the respect, the mutual respect. I can hear the same out of your voice,
Absolutely.
And we can learn so much from each other.
They've been tremendous partners.
Yeah.
As I've spent 6.5 or 7 years in the airline part of our business after my first few years at PAL, switching the airline, became the VP of Business Development with the airline, and so that's where I got a lot of that exposure, and been great. I've been in the Aerospace group now for the last couple of years, so I haven't had as much regular dealings with my friends in Labrador, but it was awesome.
Do you ever think when you're going to school at Gonzaga that you'd be a vice president of PAL?
No, that's not true. No, I didn't think that. I don't know, really. I had some aspirations of law school, and I just never even attempted to do it. I'm not sure why and how I led to where I am, but here I am.
But here you are. So that's what you're doing in the moment professionally. What are you doing in the moment personally? I know you're dabbling in cooking.
Well, yeah. So personally, I have 2 kids. Boy and girl, 15, almost 14. Keeps me busy.
Yeah.
Single parent, so with them every second week.
Right.
So that's been great. And obviously, one of the defining moments of your life is the birth of your kids.
Right.
I'd say the another unfortunate one is the splitting up of the family.
Right.
Which something I will regret till I go, because not that it wasn't the right thing to do for me, but just the kids, the impact on kids is tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so cooking, not so much cooking as such, but put a barbecue in front of me and I'm not afraid to.
Good, eh? On a barbecue?
I don't know if I'm good, but I'll try anything.
Shit, we could have had you out on the deck.
Yeah. So, but other than that, like I'm learning from life's lessons, and lost my father, like I said off the top, a few years ago. So learning from that, learning from a failed marriage, and I had a great quote from a friend when I told him. He said to me, "Look, you never have to spend another day of your life unhappy."
Right.
And I'll take that to the grave.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's a powerful thing, and I've moved on, and I am very happy. So I've got a great other person in my life that I'm like to spend time with, and we're having a great time.
I got to say this: we really appreciate sharing that, because not everyone would want to get into that, and we are called GaleForceWins. Yeah. But it's Jacqueline Lee, who's the COO of PAL Unity, shared with us last week. Some of the real low lows that she went through and stuff. It's just refreshing to hear you be so candid about that.
Well, I'm a pretty private guy, but if I'm going to be authentic and real and tell you what's on the go today, that's part of who I am. What's making up Steve Dinn today.
What's making you tick, right? Yeah. What are the kids involved in? What kind of activities do they keep you busy with?
They're in hockey and basketball and dance and that kind of stuff.
The whole thing, right?
Yeah. So
running the roads, as they say.
They're teenagers, right? So you as a parent, like I know how I was as a teen, so I don't expect them to be a whole lot different.
Not a whole lot different, and you're still located pretpretty close to where it all started, right?
Yeah.
How does it feel to be so close to it all?
I don't know if I think I'm afraid to leave the nest, or I'm just comfortable there.
Right.
East End of St. John's is what I know, and that's it.
It's contentment, right? You feel content there. And your sister, her family is close as well to you. Yep. So that's a big part of your life as well, right?
Yeah. So that's all great. I'm just doing my thing now. I honestly, given some the personal things you go through, work is work for me. It's a job. It's not my life. It's not who defines me. I settled that a few years ago, and said that wouldn't define me. I'm Steve Dinn. I'm a dad. I'm a person who wants to be comfortable and happy in life, and work's a part of it.
That's an important part. I mean, we've got a lot of people that watch this podcast, listen to it, that are into business. I fell into the trap of the 2 a.m. email exchange. Had a colleague, you may have known him, Don Spurl. I don't know if you knew him. He passed away at the age of 39. And I'll never forget the first time I ever sent him an email at 2 o'clock in the morning. He responded instantaneously, and it was this joke, but it's not worth it, You can be successful without having to work 24 hours a day, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you don't expect that of your staff, because what are you going to get out of them next week if you got them burnt out, right?
Yeah, you got to find the balance, right? And this life's pretty quick.
Yeah,
you got to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, so. Life moves fast. So great journey of where you kind of came from. And what you're doing in the moment. And thanks for that whole explanation of what PAL's doing. I think a lot of people would not have known that. And it's something to be very proud of, not only you as a vice president, but I think for all of Newfoundland to be very proud of what they're doing and contributing on a global scale. What's over the horizon for you? Where do you see yourself going? 5 or 10 years? What's that all look like?
I mean, I don't really, I can't say I know. I don't have that mapped out. I watch the kids go off to university in that time period and see where that takes them and how I can support that. Yeah. Myself, I still see, the excitement and the growth at PAL that'll keep me interested and keep me going. It's a great thing to be part of.
Yeah.
Not to mention the work they do, but the some of the people that are there are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've met many of them. You're right.
Keeps you going. Is what an environment for just relationships with colleagues. It's fantastic. There's a lot of good, smart, hardworking people there that you like to have fun with, right?
Right.
And it's a good thing. because they do work hard and they do work a lot. So the ability to have fun mixed in with that is pretty key.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the team members you work with. Tell us about those folks.
Well, they're broad cross section of people. It's there's different cultures and people from different areas and different areas of the province, different areas of the world.
Yeah.
And just everybody seems open and happy and getting to know those people and what they like and what they don't like and their families and their upbringings, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I did. I'm going to name one person that I know because it was such a community thing that he did. Bill Madore. I don't know if he's still with you.
Oh yes,
yeah. So Bill and I were on the board of the YMCA, and they needed a lot of financial help. That is not my skill set.
Yeah.
So he jumped in, and I tell you, man, he took on a big burden. So him and a few others. So anyway, just so you know, big commitment to the community there.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that the company does anyway, as a whole, to get involved in the community. I mean, it's been tough the last couple of years to be proactively out there doing things, but we still contributed. We always will. But yeah, Bill's a big piece of our aerospace and defense company.
Yeah. It must be hard though, like when you want to be in the community, how many markets you in? You just 20, 30? 40?
Yeah, it's close.
How do you pick what market you're going to do some community stuff in?
Close on 30 markets in the airline alone, right?
Yeah.
So from Ottawa East.
Yeah.
So
it's hard enough to manage one market. That's where I've been primarily focused.
Yeah. So it's it's good. You don't have to. We never had to push employees to do these things. They always wanted to do it. So
that's excellent.
Yeah.
Stephen, you've had a great journey, and you're in the middle of it. I mean, you're still. I mean, you're in.
I hope so. I hope there's not the end.
No, you're in the middle of it, right? And you know, PAL is just on a trajectory to even more success. So professionally, you're on a great trajectory, and at home, the kids are at that point right now where life is going to just unfold in front of them. And you get a front row seat to that, right? You know,
it's scary.
It's scary, right? But it's also exciting, right?
Is,
to see the direction that they take and how their lives turn out. I mean, my kids are 18 and 20, and I'm just watching them kind of plot out their life. And I have to tell you, it's pretty exciting.
For sure.
To see the direction they go. A little bit sad that this they're moving out or whatever, right? But it's an exciting journey. So. And you're right, as I say, you're in the middle of that right now. We always ask our guests to, leave the audience with a piece of advice. What would that be? Now, from a guy who's had some pretty unique experiences, right?
Yeah.
So what would that be?
I probably wouldn't have any one thing, but I remember accepting an award from the Board of Trade on behalf of PAL one year. And one of the things I said after getting the Business Excellence Award was just a message from a professional perspective is, don't be afraid to compete one day and partner the next. Mm-hmm. We're small. We're a small place. We've got a lot of successful companies, and we're going to compete and butt heads on some things. Doesn't mean we can't partner and work together to be successful tomorrow.
Right.
So that's one thing I think is pretty important, and we've done that at our work, and you can't close doors. You have to be open to that stuff, and sometimes it's not going to work out on the same page for you. But and I guess from a personal perspective, and I've kind of said it, in something a friend told me earlier, but I would, you're in charge of you, to young people especially, you're in charge of you and you alone, and I wouldn't sacrifice a day of happiness for anything. Mm-hmm. You've got a short time here. You can't predict everything that's going to happen and cross your path throughout life, but you got to be happy. That's bottom line. And
we've thrown in another question at the end. We always should leave it at one piece of advice, but we've thrown in another one, and that is, what would you say to your 20-year-old self right now? If you met him on the street right now,
go to your room.
I like it.
I think you can't live within your comfort zone, but don't be afraid to take chances. Right. I took a chance to move to Ontario, and for me that was a huge deal. For some people, water off a duck's back. Right. But for me, that was a big, big decision. I didn't. I took it, and I never looked back. It was. I think it's been fairly defining for me and helped me in a lot of ways with just as a human, from an independence perspective and a confidence perspective and those types of things. So I think you gotta take a chance sometimes.
Jerry, your thoughts?
It's interesting. Your diversity of your career is really fascinating. I think, you know, we don't want to be too political on this podcast. We're really interested in the business side of things. That being said, we've had several politicians on and everything. But, you know, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the things you shared with us, because it's an important part of the fabric of this society to be able to have someone like, say, Danny Williams, who goes into the political arena, Andrew Fury now, probably doesn't need to do it either. So I really appreciate, Steve, you coming on and saying that. I was really, really gripped by your story of your first pitch in Chicago, young boy from St. John's. I remember being in Saskatchewan doing some pitches and stuff, and you're like, oh my God, is this really me? Yeah, thanks for that. It's I think bottom line is you have a lot of confidence, and PAL is lucky to have you. So thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I don't raise the whole. It's a time in my life when I worked in politics. I'm not active in it much anymore. I would have told the story if I had to work for Premier Fury if that was my story, but it's not. My story is I work for Danny Williams. Incidentally, I grew up and went to school with Andrew the whole way through, so I know Andrew as well. So it's just it's just we're a small place here, and you can't block people off because they work for certain people in politics. No. That's too childish.
Yeah. You compete some days and collaborate others, right? Just like in business. Yeah. Another wonderful edition of GaleForceWins, and what a pleasure it was to be in conversation with Stephen Dinn. What an interesting journey Stephen has had. I mean, through his career in sales, heading off to Toronto. I just love that story about putting the picture of St. John's up to situate this crowd of highfalutin people in Chicago and put them in a place and time and ease the conversation. I hope you made that sale. And I bet you
we didn't ask about that. What kind of closers are we? We didn't even ask if you made a sale. Right?
So I hope you made the sale down there in Chicago. But it was a great journey, and certainly through the political world that many people don't get a look behind that curtain as the way Stephen would. And to come out of that and then without a break, just dive right in to growing an incredible Newfoundland company, managing family and everything as you go along. Stephen, you've had a great journey, and we certainly appreciate what you've done for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Even though you may not think you've done a great deal, there's no doubt in my mind you've made this place a better place. So thank you for that, and thanks for coming on GaleForceWins. I have to tell you, I always like to leave the audience with my own piece of advice, and I'll give you two. One is, your mom and dad be very proud of you. I know I'm proud of you. And the world needs more Stephen Dinn. So thank you very much. Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to GaleForceWins. That's GaleForceWins, WINS.com.